Dennis. I mean, that one has to sting. He knew he was much, much better. Makes it a lot worse that he had Magnus without much counterplay, and at some point, just one inaccuracy. That's all it took.
Eric, those are the moments that are going to add up that you look back on. You know, should the match not go his way, those are the moments you think, I had a full point that I could have claimed in that one. Ultimately, ends in a draw. But unfortunately for Dennis, the games that are ending in draws are the ones where he has an edge. So Magnus is doing a good job at neutralizing tough positions, neutralizing his opponent's advantages, and capitalizing on his own.
Yeah, Dennis, that last game, I think he has to feel very good about the opening position he got, but that was a game with the white pieces. He's got to play black in between now and then and make sure not to let that deficit grow. If he can hold things with black, get another chance like that, that's the best opportunity, because we haven't seen him with black have much counterplay since that King's Indian game, I think, in the first segment.
It makes you think, this is the part of the match where the players have to be thinking about what openings they're playing in terms of what's going to yield the best result. You've kind of experimented in the 5+1. Now the points really start to matter as things ramp up towards the finish line. Knight back to d7. In this position, it definitely looks as though the d3 pawn, immediately comes to your attention. It's a backwards pawn, but the d4 square is something that white controls, and it's not going to be a pawn that's that weak.
Yeah, bishop f6 stopping maybe white from playing d4 in certain positions. Bit double-edged here because you give up control of the d6 square. I'm not sure if there's any tactics. Magnus says maybe there are, or I can put my knight on d6 and cause some chaos. And my question is, where do you place the rook? Rook c7. Is there any discovered attack that's effective here?
Well, immediately you start calculating every single one of them. Magnus, no doubt, doing that right now. If the rook moved, what was interesting is that there may be a move that takes advantage of that bishop on c6, that loose bishop, such as a move like potentially e5 or maybe d4 in the center.
Yeah, e5 or maybe bishop d6 and then e5, locking that bishop in. If you're trying to be ambitious, you're looking at that. There's probably some other solid moves, but e5, I think e5 is asking to be played. But there's a risk there, putting your pawns on dark squares, maybe a bit overextended.
Interesting reaction there. Magnus seemed quite unhappy with his own move, Eric, as he has played that move, bishop d6.
I don't see why. I mean, you play bishop d6, you play e5. This looks pretty decent.
I thought so as well. I wonder if he thought he saw something in the knight d6 variations that he wished he had maybe repeated one more time. But ultimately, yeah, going for this exact plan with e5, cementing the bishop. And remember, if the black bishop takes on d6, the knight on c4 is ready to recapture. So this is not an easy position to navigate.
It's really hard to navigate because you pretty much are resigned to the fact that white will place the knight on d6. And it's probably going to stay there unless you sack the exchange, because e5, controlling that square, can always be supported by f4. So how does black undermine the c5 pawn? If you can't undermine it, you have to play around it.
Agreed.
Maybe knight b8, knight c6.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, you can go for your own square. Knight b8, knight c6, knight d4. Right in the center of the board. The d4 square is great. But this b5 move to kick the knight, it kind of kicks the knight where it wants to go, which is that d6 square. So not that effective.
So I think Dennis wants to play knight b6, knight d5. That's how you grab a little bit of space. If Magnus plays f4, you can see this d5 square being pretty effective, but wouldn't want to play against the knight on d6 long term, and tough to see equality here.
c4 has just been played. In come the rest of the pieces. Rook to a7, maybe doubling the rooks. This knight on d7 for black wants to be on d5. That actually could rival the d6 knight as one of the best pieces in the position. So rook a7, allowing that possibility.
I'm not sure if I like what Magnus has done. Okay, taking on b5 makes sense, because if you didn't take on d5, black would put the knight on d5 and maybe start pushing the queen side where there's potential for a pawn majority in a passed pawn.
Yeah, this is obviously what black had to give up in order to achieve this, but still, I do think this is some sort of progress here for Dennis. But at the end of the day, if you start trading so many pieces, the best result you really are going to get with the black pieces is, again, probably just a draw.
You're going to win b2 and lose c4, even though white's up a pawn, black has a strong knight on d5. But as you mentioned, a 2-result game in the wrong direction.
Yep. You do have to be careful of knight e3, but that is covered at the moment. Knight e3 taking advantage of the pin, but the knight on c4 watching over that. And if we saw rook to c2, I think white would be able to create a back rank threat there.
I mean, we're pretty deep in the match, and but the players aren't blundering much, right? We can talk about that. This has been a high level, like no forks, nothing, even in time pressure. So that makes it pretty hard for Denis, because he's wondering, when is Magnus going to make that? He makes blunders. He's made one-move blunders before. But today, it's been very rare.
It is, and we're again in those positions where the evaluation bar might be hovering around equal, but I would not take that as gospel, right? Because you're undermining the knight with knight e3. All of a sudden, you trade into these endgames.
Wow.
And he doesn't, because he's been beat so many times in this match in those endgames. Perhaps he's starting to lose some confidence, Eric.
For sure, but by moving your knight from the best square on the board, you're conceding, and now the knight on e3 takes away d5, supports f5. And where's this knight going? You lost your best square, and so now white's up a pawn. White has better pieces, better rook, better knight, and has the tension.
Yeah, f5 is concerning. This is almost impossible to react to. If you take it, it's just a... And that is it, actually. If you take that pawn, it may lead to a checkmate. Eric, this has gone from bad to worse as